right, it is time for Friday Reads. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. In my Friday Reads videos, I share how my reading is going, including what I finished, what I've started, and anything interesting about things that I'm carrying over week to week. And as always, I have a little bit of everything. And to start with the finishes, of course, but I have to say, this is a great way to start the month. I have two really big finishes this month. Like, really, they have been hanging out with me for quite some time, and they're both quite lengthy works, and I finished them right at the beginning of the month. And the currently reading challenge, of course, helped, sort of. It helped one of the titles a lot. The other title, it didn't help at all, at least on this round. In the May round, this title is the only nonfiction that did not get picked. The only one. And I was really hoping it did, because I didn't have that much left to read. But at least now I get to finish it in June, and I did. And that was The Diary of Anaïs Nin. This is volume 1, 1931 to 1934. Anaïs Nin is an author and a prolific diaryist, I think that's the term, and this is the first of 7 volumes of her published diaries in this series. There are also ones from earlier, from when she was younger, because this actually starts when she's an adult, but she did start making a diary, I think, when she was around 11, so prolific, like absolutely prolific. And so this one has been with me for a while. I started it in 2019. It's one of 2 titles left on my currently reading from 2019. I have this and Outline Alphabets, so both nonfiction. This is, to be fair, this is 400 pages on ebook, and I do think it is had the Kindle squish. I do think the page count it didn't feel like you turn several times before you get a page count, which is normal for Kindle, but it feels like longer. Anyway, I enjoyed this. She is absolutely amazing at understanding people and how she describes people and their behavior and her relationship with them. And during this, I didn't pick up on this until I read it on Wikipedia, but during this time period, one of the strong, not necessarily themes, but things that's going on in her life is that she's going to, well, I guess now we would just simply say therapy, but she talks to a psychotherapist as well as someone else who's a doctor, and I think it was pretty, still in the early stages of that being a thing, and so this really is something that gives her time and a way to reflect on herself, which I know she's doing. She's writing a diary, which, you can keep a diary in many different ways, in terms of whether you're chronicling your day, or you're talking about how you're feeling, or you talk about what's happening, or your plans, or there's so many different approaches to, to a diary or to journaling. So, and I love journaling. I journal all the time, so I have an interest that way, and I tend to be more of a chronicler, like a bit more of what happened, but also what I'm thinking and what I'm working through. So, depending on the journal, I have so many different journals. Anyway, but this, I think there's so many. So there's that. So there's the self-reflection through therapy, which I didn't pick up on at all as something that happened throughout, because a lot of her time she talks about her relationship, specifically with different men in her life. And sometimes I found that frustrating because I really wanted to know about her, and she spends a lot of time sort of helping other people, like helping men, in particular Henry. I think it's Henry Miller, who's a writer and who she was good friends with, and she definitely, helps him. And so, but I really wanted to know her thoughts, and she does share them, and a lot of them, but, and also, especially I wanted to know her thoughts as an author and an artist. And so, but I did really enjoy it. I just thought there would be a little bit more on that, and I think there was more about her as a person, as opposed to an author. So it was really interesting. So now I'm stuck with, what do I do? Do I keep reading this? Like, it took me 2 years to read this one work, and there's 7. But on the other hand, this goes through 4 years of her life. So to read someone's 2 years of their diary, 4 years of their diary in 2 years, maybe that's not that bad. Maybe that's not that bad. So anyway, whether or not I continue with this series or continue to read her diaries is to be determined, but I'm definitely going to take a break. But I did really, really value it. She just is an extraordinary person, and like how she sees and understands people and describes them, and I didn't know quite how I don't know what the right word, profound or influential it was that she did this. Like, I don't know how many other diaries, especially written by women, were something that was published. Like, this wasn't published, I think, till the 60s or the 70s, but still, she let her, you know, she was in a lot of arts and writer communities, and people read her diaries, which is also unusual, you know. Anyway, so it was a fascinating read, and I'm curious to know more, and I definitely think, it's very likely I'll continue reading them. They're back on Scrib. They weren't there for a while, at least for me, and now they're back. So, and the next one is another 400 pages. This was 400 pages, and I think actually the next one might be 5. So, I don't know. Gonna take a break. We'll see how things go. But I'm thrilled that I finished it. I only had 50 pages left at the beginning of May, which just was one of those things that I couldn't believe it didn't get picked. I knew I could finish it in a week, but I got to finish it for June, so that was great. Also, a big finish this week was Battle Royale, yes, by Koushun Takami, translated by Yuji Oniki. And this one I have been working on for a while. I started it last summer when I got it from the library. I wasn't able to finish it during the library period. It is 600 pages. So I ended up buying a copy in the fall, and I read a bit of it then, but then I didn't really come back to it until the currently reading challenge. It came up twice, and I read an epic number of pages, and then I think I had 200 left at the start of the month, or like at the end of May, at the end of the challenge. So I just kept at it, and this is I would say it's a thriller. There's a Q&A at the back with the author, and one of the questions says that the book is a pulp fiction, and I'm like, wow, I had not thought of it that before. Anyway, the premise of it is it's a bunch of junior high schoolers are taken to an island, and they're given a backpack with weapons, and with a weapon. I think they each get one weapon, and they're like, okay, only one person is going to survive this process, go. And so it's, Hunger Games-ish. I think this came out before, but it's also, I don't think this is the first time this idea has been used. I don't know, don't quote me on that. So it was, and reading this in pieces is not great. There is quite a large cast. They do have a list of the cast at the front, so it's nice to have a bit of a reference. So we have 42 students, and initially when I started reading it, I did sort of keep track, but I found it slowed down my reading process, and it is quite a fast read, I will give it that. I do feel like I have some challenges with this one, mostly in terms of the gender dynamics. I feel like the female characters are pretty, I would say, like, one-dimensional, but like they're sort of the two of the three types that we see of female characters. There's no mother character because they're all teenagers, so we get the other two types, and so that was a bit disappointing. And it's also often how women are projected or depicted in horror movies, the sort of that two types, and I'm just like, so well, like, over that. Like, can we have a little more dimension here? I did feel like it's hard to talk about it because I don't want to spoil it, because it is quite, intense, and I think it's better to not know things that happen. And I don't know if I can say that I enjoyed it. There were moments in this that I thought were great, in terms of storytelling, in terms of character, in terms of relationships, but I do feel like the fact that the female characters and some of the male characters were not terrible, were very sort of one-dimensional or stereotypes, or there's another word for that, I can't remember. I did feel like it pulled back from my enjoyment, but I think this is more, I don't know if it's more about action. I wouldn't say that. Like, I feel like that is also sort of saying something, and I think that the story is really interesting, and the choices the characters make, I think, is sort of the most interesting, but some of the choices I feel are a bit just like, yeah, you're always going to have someone who does that. Like on reality shows, like when there's always like the person who does this or the person who does that. Maybe that is, I don't know, is that stereotyping, or is that just, are we just used to that? I don't know. I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point. Anyway, so I am really happy that I finished. I do plan on watching the movie. I probably will watch it in the near future while the story and the characters are quite, fresh in my mind, especially because I always do play the comparison game in terms of some of the plot, and I'm curious to see if they kept things as they are or if they went a bit of a different direction. I imagine it'll be intense and extremely violent because the book is as well. So, but I did finish it. It's one of the oldest books on my Goodreads TBR. It's from back in the days where I was well more involved in film than in reading. I added it day one on Goodreads, so it's an epic win for that. It's also an epic win because it is 600 pages, and that is a lot of pages, and now I know better. I'm not doing I'm not reading books that are that long anymore. I'm picking one a year. I think I'm gonna do that. That's what I came up with more recently, and I think that's gonna be a good way to go. One longer book a year and everything else shorter, at least for now. See how that works, and we'll see how things go. Speaking of shorter, I also am just gonna mention briefly, I forgot to mention in my TBR, but I did also read The Master Builder by Ibsen, so that's the fourth in this, and it's my last reread for reading all of Ibsen. I'm reading all of Ibsen's work chronologically. This one I didn't love. I didn't love it on first read. It might end up being my least favorite, actually, because I don't like the character of the Master Builder. I don't like the gender dynamics, because there's this young sort of ingenue character that sort of, I don't know what you would say, is it goats? No, like, kind of just, I don't know. It's just not a dynamic or a character, I feel like. Are people really like that? Anyway, so it follows an architect, or not an architect, but someone who makes buildings, who's not a trained architect, and the theme of this one apparently is the being scared of the youth coming and sort of usurping or being more important than he is as the master builder, because he sort of feels like he's the most important. Not themes that I love. It's actually very it's surprising, given other works of Ibsen, to sort of go with this theme and this character and this depiction of female characters. It's just very unusual in when you look at the grand scheme of his works. But anyway, it's the last reread from his works. I need 3 more. There's 3 more plays that I need to read, and I will be taking a break in July, so August, September, and October, I'm going to read the last 3 works, and I'm really excited about that. So yeah, so those were the big finishes, and I'm really happy with. It's really amazing to start the month with that strong start. I'm a little worried that it might get a bit haphazard from here, which may be the case because I am going to the library, but and I'm just sort of kind of letting myself read almost anything. I do have some structured and planned reading, but I am looking forward to the library as well. Anyway, in terms of some other stuff that I had finished, I didn't mean to go into library talk yet. I did also start We Were Dreamers, an Immigrant Superhero Origin Story by Simu Liu, who is in Shang-Chi as well as Kim's Convenience. He's a Chinese-Canadian actor, and this came out this year, and I'm really excited to read it. It's a memoir, and I've only just started. I'm on like page 15, but I'm loving it already, like absolutely loving it. So looking forward to reading this, and it was exciting. I was able to start a new memoir because I finished the Diary of Anaïs Nin, so I try not to read too many of the same genre at the same time, so yeah, finished one, started one, so back to even. I also started, and this I did mention in my TBR, Nancy Drew, The Curse. This is by Micol, Ostow. This is a prequel to the TV show, which is a CW TV show, which I really do want to watch. So my goal here is to read the book to get familiar with the characters a little bit and encourage myself to watch the show. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. It's very YA, like Nancy is a high schooler and she's friends with obviously other high schoolers, and it very much reminds me of the Vampire Diaries in terms of that it's like there's a lot of sort of like social, like not social events, but like there's some kind of school play or something, and like everyone sort of like knows exactly who's going to get cast, but then there seems to be like big anticipation on trying to figure out who's going to get cast, and like, but if you know who's always cast, because they always cast the whatever senior year, why is this a surprise? So there's a lot, for me, there's a little, like, it's a bit weird because it seems like it's trying to like build tension on something, but it also is saying that in this town things are run the way that they're run, and everyone knows everyone, and everyone, so it's like, why is there any tension when you just know everything? I don't know. Anyway, it will be a mystery. I haven't gotten to the mystery yet. I did see some of the chapter titles, so I have a sense of what the mystery will be. Whoops. But it's not totally grabbing me, but I am going to keep going and see where it goes. It might get lost in the mix, I'm not gonna lie, because I have a lot of other stuff on the go. In terms of what I am carrying over week to week, I have been continuing to read the manga Flying Witch. I really enjoyed this one. I didn't love it right from the get-go, but recently I've read volume 4 and 5. It's very, Becca from Read, Becca said the term low stakes when she was talking about something in lattes. There's a fantasy novel a lot of people are talking about, but it's like set in a coffee shop, and she called it low stakes, and I feel like this kind of feels like that, like low stakes, like it's just sort of like everyday life, and it's a witch that's staying with a family. I don't think generally people know about witches, but she has a cat familiar, and there's often like a cute animal something side story. And it's just like not too much happens, and it's just quite lovely and relaxing. So I'm really enjoying that. I also got back to, because my reading got a little strange, I'm just trying to read at least 100 pages from my older currently reading titles, and I was reading Tess of the Dubervilles, but it got a little too close to the storyline of Les Mis. They seemed a little similar, so I only read like 20 pages. So to make up my pages, I started My Soul to Keep again by Tanner Dew. This is an urban fantasy horror adult novel about immortals, or there are immortals, but it's mostly regular everyday life, and the story seems to be following a woman who's a reporter who is married to someone who is an immortal, but she doesn't know that. So this one's quite tense and quite realistic in terms of the drama and how people like everyday life stuff, and I'm finding it quite tense, but it's also very good. Like the writing is really good, understanding human behavior is really good, but I am worried. Like now there's enough stuff that's happened that I'm like, I'm just not sure what's going to happen next, and so I am curious as to what's going to happen next, and I'm always very engaged while I'm reading it, but it's a bit on the darker side for me, thematically, not so much the horror, but a bit more like human nature, which honestly really is a lot of what horror is sharing, the sort of some dark side of human nature stuff. So yeah, and then also Les Mis. So that's just the constant. So that's, I think, mostly what I have finished, started, and carrying over. I am super excited about the library. So I did do my first trip where I got my holds, and I've already finished Baby Mouse Monster Mash, which was a lot of fun. This is the third Baby Mouse that I have read. Oh my god, it's so great. Like, it's a really fast read. I literally read it in the commercials when I was watching a TV show, and I finished it before the end of the hour easily. And she also daydreams, and I love the sequences where she daydreams, because they're like little movies where she's the star of the show, like, every time, and that's sort of my favorite part. I do find, now that I've been reading a couple of these, I feel like the plot is sort of the same, and there isn't sort of like building on lessons learned, which I'm a little concerned about, so I might read them a little more sparingly, but I'll read a couple more and see if that's the case always. But that's been fun. Upcoming, I have my buddy reads I'm going to be starting this week. So I will be reading The Vile Village, a series of unfortunate events, book number It says book the seventh. And this I am buddy reading with Izzy and Kate Kelly, and it has been so much fun to be reading these together. I'm really curious to reread this one because I didn't love it on first read, but after watching the show and talking about it with Izzy and having some time go by, I've sort of like started to see it a little bit differently. So I'm really curious to see what the reread is going to be like. I'm also going to be starting Sword of Darkness by Kinley McGregor, which is a pseudonym for Sherilyn Kenyon. Anita let me know that it is a pseudonym. I'm buddy reading this with Anita. It is a paranormal historical romance that is Arthurian, and I think it's just quite amazing that it is from the Albion branch of the library. If you know, you know. So I'm really looking forward to this. I'm thrilled that the library had it. I was thrilled it was a paperback. Often when I've gotten the Dark Hunter series, they have been hardcover, but this one is the first in the Lords of the Night. I think it's Lords of Avalon sub-series, nestled series within a series kind of thing. So that's what I'm going to be reading, plus all of the library books. Honestly, I got over 20 books from the library, but I already read Monster Mash, so one down, lots to go, lots of choice. That is what has been keeping me busy this week. It has been a lot. There's definitely been a lot of reading this week, and I'm definitely at well over 30 at this point. But I think after I clear off what I've currently read, I think I'm back down to 25. So will be. I'm at 27, hopefully by the end of the week. When I do my Goodreads cleanup, I'll be at 25. We shall see. I will post it on Instagram as always. Okay, so that's what I've been reading this week. Let me know what you have been reading. Are you going to the library? Have you finished any really long books recently? Because 608 pages for a Battle Royale, that's probably the longest of the year so far for any kind of sort of like novel prose situation. So let me know. Have you finished any long books recently? Or short books? Baby Mouse, 84 pages, probably 10 minutes. It was great. I loved it. I loved it probably more than Battle Royale. Probably. Well, they're just very different. Anyway, Monster Mash, Battle Royale. I'll have to think on that. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I will be back soon with another video. Take care.